So first, I want to give a little bit of background information before we hop in. And so this, like I said, is a rather interesting and powerful piece, and there's a lot of special ideas here, right? So this takes place on Black Monday itself, right? This is where we get our name. Black Monday being a historical day where the stock market crashed. And there's this idea within the text that this did not happen necessarily by chance, but as a result of sacrifice, a pact with the gods of wealth and power in exchange for their favor. We follow financial markets as if they themselves were schools of magic. And so we get these really interesting ideas playing out here as a result. And all of this gathered together into basically a financial collapse in order to gain power. So this creates our context. And I will note here, one, I'm not going to share every part of this, and I highly recommend that you buy both copies. If you have not read them, I will put links in the comments. Please make sure to pick those up. And this is actually the second book that we're going to be going through. I did a shorter review and discussion in one of my earlier videos, but it was a bit more crude. But if you want to take a look, it is there. So from the gate, we start getting some interesting themes showing up. And I find these to be filled with a very interesting contrast. So here from the gate, we see this depiction of both antlers, skulls, and death. And we get this mix of Americana and pagan themes throughout all of them. And so we see them overlaid with one another. In that last image I showed, we see this antlered god reading the newspaper, right? The business pages, this mix of Wall Street and paganism, this newsprint, and the gods of wealth and power are this embodiment of both of these things brought together. And we get this idea that these gods, already we're seeing really clear themes to sacrifice. And that's really what we're getting to from the gate, right? These are symbols used really in some Celtic and other cultures, along with sacrificial rituals. So from the gate, we're getting the idea that blood must be spilled to appease the gods of the market. And we hop into our protagonist and kind of his shaman figure. And I think there's some really interesting stuff here from the gate. So throughout the work, we'll see color used to depict various different themes. And here we see the browns, right? I mean, everything is layered in these shades. The professor's coat, everything has this hue and overlay. And brown is used to designate a lack of power. And it's contrasted with blues, right? So these yellows and almost sicknesses and these light overlays, which are very Campbellian to play with color like this. But we see them as representing these different settings and levels of connection to power. And I find it, I think, great and interesting that here from the gate, yet again, we're meeting at a diner, right? This is the status quo of Americana. This is what starts our myth. And what we'll also notice here is if we look anywhere at this point where we're seeing eyes, they are shaded out, that these individuals are incapable of seeing. Their eyes, they can't connect and actually see what is there. There is a layer that is blinding them, almost as if they are in Plato's cave. And as we continue, yet again, we see some similar bits of that, but his eyes are starting to open up. The hat has been removed as we're having a conversation about magic and belief. And he's starting to be brought in to these discussions and see the world in a new way. And we see that contrasted here yet again by the colors that are outside the window. He's looking out and it is just away. We see that here, right? Just outside of reach, just above their heads. This colors, these brighter warmths, this illumination is just outside of their realm. But they have enough evidence of the unseen. There's a reflection that's coming in that they know that it might be there and that they might be able to see it. But they need to figure out how. And so they're having discussions, right, that are about the door itself, talking about evidence unseen, and then being able to accept it, having faith in the ethereal, in an entirely another world, that's something outside of us that we can believe in. If we can have the faith, right? These are through mirrors that we can start to come to understand reality, right? Art is a reflection of nature, which our May videos talk about in depth. And some other ones as well. And so I think this is one of my favorite discussions in the whole text, right? So they're having an idea, or they're having a discussion about Judas and the other betrayer of Jesus, right? It was Peter, and they're asking, why was Judas evil? What made his betrayal different? He took the money. Money is the manifestation of power and evil in this text. We are running with the idea that power or evil does equate to both power and wealth. And we see a deep pull. This is the greatest truth he knows. His eyes are wide open about this, and he's connecting to his as well. Right? The truth is just on his lips, and yet again, we're drawn back to the illumination that is just outside, this other world that they're going to seek to engage with. And when he says power, it means power beyond our mortal, that this does exist, and we are going to explore those. And so we are asked ultimately, what does it take? How do those get that? And this is a kind of human sacrifice, right? And we see that yet again depicted these yellows, right? We've moved to the halfway class of those that will serve those in power, right? They have just enough illumination. But when he talks about real power, he says it's a biblical exchange. It's blood for power, and there is no chance, no good fortune to be found in it. After you hear all that 60 families control and represent half of the wealth on the planet, do you think that things like that happen just by luck? And our professor says, no, of course not. It's orchestrated. And the key to understanding the dark arts. And so we now have our background set. Our characters are trying to move from a lack of knowledge into illumination as they seek to see the world of power and wealth and explore these themes throughout the text. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please stick around. Next week, we're going to be discussing the highlights of power, and I hope to catch you then.